This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I are back talking college football as well as the NFL. We focus on college football specifically on the games this past weekend. We talk about all the individual performances from Jaden Daniels and Dylan Gabriel. And we also talk about what is ahead for all these teams. And then we finish up by talking about the Cleveland Browns and the historic comeback they had. All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben, that's Josh, and we are here. We're actually recording at a different time than normal. It's after a practice, man. I'm feeling alive. It was out in the cold, just feeling alive. But Josh, how's the weather? We're nearing Thanksgiving, so how's the weather over there in Ohio? And what'd you do this weekend outside of watching football? Did you do anything spectacular this weekend?
Oh man, me and some of the guys got together for a game night the other day. We played this. I can't even remember what the game was called. If it's called Bang or something like that. It's Western themed, and there's like outlaws, renegades, sheriff, and deputy and stuff. Wasn't a bad way to spend a night. Order some pizza, stuff like that.
Oh, that's the best way, man.
Let's see, but yeah. Besides watching football, that was pretty much it. But what a big college football weekend it was. We had a lot of big time individual performances. We had a handful of top 10 matchups and some other close games, and we had a couple surprise firings too before the season that we'll get into today. And it's since there's not much really, I know people will want us to talk about hockey and basketball, but let's be honest, the season's just kind of started, so there's not much we can focus on. And also it's such a the only things that we really need to talk about in those sports is that Victor Wembanyama and Connor Bedard look like number one overall picks in their leagues.
Which is a rarity, I think, nowadays, to see a number one pick actually look like a number one pick. But yeah. So, and we'll also talk about the NFL at the end. We'll talk about CJ Stroud. We'll talk about the Browns, and kind of go from there. So, Josh, shall we start off with some recap from this past weekend? Like you said, was a phenomenal weekend of college football, and maybe teams that weren't really top 10 matchups. I'm talking to you, Ole Miss. I don't know if you really were a top 10 team, but hey, maybe Georgia's that good again. But let's start where you want to start, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, we'll kind of work our way through the day. So right off the bat, we had what most people probably considered the game of the day: Michigan at Penn State.
Yeah.
We got to see Michigan take on a real team, quote unquote.
Right. Okay.
This was very similar, I think, in terms of scoring to the Ohio State game. You get a 24-15 final here. This also was right after the Jim Harbaugh controversial suspension, which came down Friday.
Let's stop there. Let's talk about that for a second, Josh. Because I know we both have strong opinions about this, and I'm a Ohio State fan with his strong opinions. Josh, when you first heard that, I think we both knew it was going to happen. We knew that there was going to be a suspension.
I actually I know that was talk and that was buzz.
No, I knew there was going to be some type of discipline from the Big Ten at some point. Now, did I think it was going to happen as soon? No. So give me your first thing when you read it on your phone. You're at work. You're reading it on your phone going, what was your thought process there?
Yeah, it was just like, this investigation, one, is still ongoing. Two, when you see suspended from the sidelines, it's like, this sounds like you're just trying to show that you're doing something for the sake of showing you're trying to do something, like with a lot of the stupid COVID regulations that we had that really didn't do anything, but it's like we have to pretend that we're doing something.
And on a holiday, when you know the next day they're not going to get an injunction because there's no one in the court system.
Michigan couldn't, like, I guess, get the right defense or fight it off or whatever. But yeah, it was just a stupid, I thought, punishment. Just made no sense to me when, like I said, the investigation's still ongoing. Let's get all the facts straight, everything in line, then come out with a real punishment that we're going to come out with at the end.
And again, if he deserves it, he deserves it at the end, then that's fine. But let's, this is a Ohio State fan, and as they were saying, bet. Yes, bet. Which is, by the way, I'm sorry, come up with something more like clever, I guess. Just feels a little weird. But anyways, but they did bet on themselves, and I will just point out that Ohio State gave up less points to Penn State than Michigan. I will point that out, and I will keep it that way.
Well, that means I have to point out that Michigan scored more than Ohio State's offense.
That is true. And it actually equals out to about the same.
And won by 9 points, while Ohio State only won by 8.
Oh,
Oh,
little things here and there, aren't we?
little things, but very similar game. And I think
Yes,
that I had called that in our
you did. You
breakdown,
did.
like probably a similar spread. I think I actually thought I had Michigan scoring 31 in
You
this
did,
one,
which
though.
that
I
was
think
a
like
shock to me.
a 31-17 final, I think, is what I had
Yes.
guessed.
I
I don't
did
remember
guess.
what you did.
I did guess around 10 for Penn State, which I was close.
Yeah.
I was close there. But I do think the game was a lot more interesting in the fact that Michigan only threw the ball 8 times.
Not only that, if I told you that there was only 130 combined passing yards, or excuse me, 134, got to include Katron Allen's little halfback pass there. 134 combined passing yards in this game. What are you
Well,
doing with that information?
well, I think this is the thing though, is I think we've proven the fact, I don't know if you'll get to this. We've proven the fact that Aller is not a top quarterback when it comes to big games. I mean, he just looks scared. He looks like a guy that is caught in the headlights, has no idea. And you would have thought that after playing Ohio State, Penn State would do something different. And they did nothing different. They really didn't. They kept the same game plan, which they didn't even run. They didn't even try to really run the ball.
Not much more. I mean, Allen and Singleton both had double-digit carries in this game this time, but still.
It was just weird. It's like you know, like Michigan and Ohio State have very good pass defenses. You know, you're not going to pass the ball on them that well. It was a weird game plan. And again, you asked if I was surprised. No, because I knew what Michigan would do. Once they got up, they were just going to run it down their throats, which they did that the whole second half. They ran it 30 times, right? So people can say what they want. You know, Ohio State only ran for 79 yards. People, they didn't have Travion Henderson in that game. If Travion Henderson's in that game, it's a totally different ball game. I believe that. I really do. I think that changes things back then. And again, that was, 4 weeks ago? That was like a month ago. So you're talking that's a big difference in game plan. But again, I think on top of that, Michigan's defense is very good. Penn State's defense is good as well, but Michigan's defense is very solid. Now, did I see gaps in their defense? I think I do see some that I think, again, it's weird because this is the only tough team, in quotes here, air quotes, tough team that Michigan's going to play until Ohio State. Like they have nothing else to look at and go, how good is it? I don't know if we still know how good Michigan is. Again, that's like my little recap of the game. They're good, like very good, top 5 team for sure. Do I know if they can beat a top team that's got a great offense and a great defense? I don't know.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and push back on that a little bit because now Ohio State's best win of the season is also Penn State. So if you're going to undermine Penn State in this Michigan win, I think
I'm holding up
Ohio State's resume a little bit.
No, I'm holding up Notre Dame as well. Like Notre Dame might not be as good as what I think we all thought they would be. I mean, I think they're still a good team. But tell me who on Michigan's schedule is comparable to Notre Dame.
Yeah, they don't have that.
They don't have that. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying beating a top 10 team is not good, because that is good. What I'm saying is, in general, is that we could see that Penn State's offense is not a top tier offense. We saw against Ohio State. We've seen that now against Michigan. What I'm saying is, though, is at the end of the day, we see Michigan do this against Penn State. Who else have they done it against? That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm not trying to diss Penn State. I feel like terrible for dissing Penn State, even though I do want to point out that at the beginning of the year, I did say Penn State was going to be that 10-2 team like they always are. Do want to point that out, and I was right. It's pretty much what they are every year. But I do think that we've learned that both with Ohio State and Michigan is that they have very good defenses that when they stop one or the two, pass or run, it's very hard to beat them, right? If you look at Ohio State against Rutgers, run game was going against Ohio State, but they couldn't get anything in the pass game. Look at Michigan. Nothing can happen in the pass game, a little bit in the run game, but pretty much nothing. That's what happens, right? So I think, again, I go back to, if I look at Ohio State and Michigan side by side right now, offensively, Michigan probably has a little bit ahead just because of the way they run the ball and I guess McCarthy's efficiency that he's been throwing at. But defensively, I might have to give the edge to Ohio State because they've played, I think, more challenging teams in the long run than what Michigan has. Now, again, I'm not saying that at the end of the day, Michigan doesn't have the better deal. I'm saying right now at this moment in time, if you put them side by side going into next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend, that's what I see. Again, this is just my broad view. But yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I follow you now. I guess since I've seen Michigan do it now against a good team, I'm like, okay, I know a little bit more of what
I
think
understand
of
that.
Michigan
Yeah,
now.
I
You
get
just and you just want to see them do it a second time.
I want to see them do it twice, like because we saw that with Ohio State. Remember 2 years ago or a couple years ago. Same with some other teams, like we've seen that with Clemson, other teams where they, and Florida State could be that team, right? Where they do great against one good team, and then they go against a really top tier team, and then they choke, right? Like, so that's what I'm saying. I want to see Michigan do this against Ohio State. If they beat Ohio State, then yeah, for sure, the best team in the country. It's not even gonna be close.
Yeah, one other thing I'll point out too. I thought talking last week, obviously both teams like to run the football, but both teams' strength defensively was also running the football. We were talking like two of the top 15 run defenses in the country. Penn State, I believe, at allowing 1.8 yards a carry, being number one in the country. And we see Michigan get a lead here, and they're in a close game, and they take the ball out of JJ's hands actually, and decide to go right to what we've typically known Michigan to be. Like most of the games up to this point, they have been having JJ be much more involved in the offense than he was last year. But when the game's on the line,
does it worry
Michigan
you?
Michigan fans would probably argue that no, we know we had the lead and we could run on Penn State, so they couldn't stop it. So we were just gonna cruise to the end. And you could say, well, that could be true, but they also might have been like, we don't trust JJ to not screw this up in this moment yet.
Does
even
it
though
worry
he
you
still
though?
was 7 of 8.
Does it worry you that they like didn't even, like you see with Ohio State, they'll still give McCord the opportunity to throw. Does it worry you that in a big game they're relying so heavily on the run, even if it's going well? Does it worry you at all? Like just if you were a casual fan,
maybe a bit, because even if let's just say that JJ had the same amount of action in the second half, he still only has 16 attempts in this game, which isn't a ton. Drew Aller had 22 in this one, which also isn't a super ton, but yeah, so Michigan to me, like their identity is still their I guess confidence is still in that run game more so than is JJ. So that will be the one thing that I will be watching for in that rematch, or not rematch, but in the game against Ohio State is, okay, we've seen Michigan in their biggest game of the season default to the run and rely heavily on it. Will they do the same against Ohio State?
Yeah, I mean,
to be determined.
And I think Ohio State's defense, obviously, they're going to get healthy. I don't know if your plan was to talk about Ohio State at all.
Later, like I'm just working through the slate as it happened.
Go ahead. Next game then. Let's go to next game.
Yeah, next game that I think was noteworthy that we had mentioned last week was the Washington-Utah game.
That was a good game.
Washington was actually trailing at half.
Yeah.
But
Michael Penix
outscores. Well, kind of Michael Penix.
Not kind of, but still.
But outscores Utah 11-0 in the second half and wins this game here.
Defense stepped up.
The defense did step up, yes. They had that one almost pick six that ended up not being a pick six.
That was the funniest thing ever, dude. What is this? Why does this happen? I don't get it.
He did that early too. Like it wasn't even like they had to review it for a little bit. It was like, I'm pretty sure obvious. He dropped it beforehand on the replay. It's like he's at the 2-yard line.
Give credit to that offensive lineman that noticed it, because I don't know if I would have noticed it. Like if it was an interception, I don't know if I would have noticed that he dropped it early, to be honest with you.
I'll go ahead and give Dylan Johnson some credit too. Rushed for 100 yards in this game too for Washington, getting that run more involved. But Michael Penix, 332 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks in this one. Did exactly what he was supposed to. Rome Odunze, 3 catches, 111 yards, caught both touchdowns in this game. Kid's looking like a first-round wide receiver. Anything stand out to you in this game? I mean, it was a little closer than what I thought it would be.
I think I was just shocked how Utah was able to move the ball, I guess. Again, I think this goes back to what you and I have said for the last few weeks, is that Washington's defense is giving me a little hesitation to say that they have a good shot of making the playoff, because I feel like they run into that buzzsaw of Oregon again. I don't see them beating them twice in a season. And that defense just scares me. It's just, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's a bad defense. I'm just saying they're not maybe the old Washington defenses. I feel like this defense is more of like definitely like, we'll give you enough, but we'll make stops when we have to. but we'll give you some. And I think that after a while that runs out. We saw that with Ohio State before, like the last couple of years, some other teams as well, or Oklahoma, Texas, those kind of teams. So I guess that was my shock, was just how Utah kind of dominated that first half in a sense, just the way they kind of owned that. And then obviously Penix just kind of woke up, and Johnson as well.
Do you know the last time Washington won a game by more than 10 points this season?
Would that have been one of the first games of the year?
It was September 23rd against Cal. That was their fourth game of the season. They won 59-32.
You would
Every
think
game after that has been decided by 10 or less points.
You would think that the team that everyone hypes up and everyone's putting them in their college football playoff prediction, you would think this team would be more dominant. But then again, I'm an Ohio State fan, and we haven't always won. But Ohio State, I guess, has won more games recently by more points than less than 10. And also the Pac-12 is just challenging.
It is. I mean, they have wins over Arizona. They have wins over Oregon. I mean, say what you will about USC, but that's one of the top offenses in the country. They beat them. They just get a win over Utah.
And they have probably better wins than what Florida State has in their whole resume.
Yeah. Things definitely change as the season goes on. We'll talk a little bit more about Washington because they got another big time matchup this coming weekend. But moving on to the next big game throughout the day, one that maybe wouldn't affect the playoff all that much, but that we thought would be interesting was Tennessee at Missouri. And this actually wasn't even close. Missouri comes out with a 36-7 thumping, Ben.
What can we talk about their quarterback, Schrader, who is a walk-on? I believe he was a former
running
D2
back, Cody Schrader from a D2 school, rushes for 205 yards and a touchdown.
Running back, yes. It comes from he's only 5'9", smaller dude. Just, I mean, the dude he's come out of nowhere, man. It's awesome to see, man. It's really cool.
Very cool. 5'9", 214, so very similar build to myself. So it gives me confidence that I could have played college football if I would have given it a shot.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, man. Tennessee here. I mean, looking at Missouri stats, I mean, Brady Cook, another solid game, 275 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Missouri now is 8-2. They finished the season out with a home game against Florida, and they go to Arkansas. This could be a 10-win season
which is
for the Missouri Tigers, Ben, which we did not see coming before.
First since Brady Mock, or not Brady Mock. Mock is his last name. I forget his first name. But I think that's like the first time since way back in 2015, maybe 2014, that we've seen a Missouri team this good.
Yeah.
And it's fun, man. Dude, that's what makes college football fun, Josh. That's why we love college football. Stories like this, man. Liberty, James Madison, all these teams that are just dominating what they got to do, man. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. This is not one that we talked about, but probably the most shocking upset of the day was Oklahoma State losing to Central Florida,
trounced
45-3.
And you know how we hyped up Ollie Gordon last week? Yeah, that came to backfire us. That backfired on us.
12 carries, 25 yards, no touchdowns for our fifth Heisman finalist.
Just makes us look terrible. Just makes us look our terrible judgment.
Yeah,
let me go ahead. And UCF is not that good. They're not
They came in with a 4-5 record.
Yeah.
But UCF 21 first downs to Oklahoma State's 15. Total yards 592 to 277. 293 of that came on the ground too for UCF. They have one turnover to Oklahoma State's 4. They have the ball for almost 10 more extra minutes of possession. Just, man, what a letdown for Oklahoma State. It was looking like they might be able to sneak into the Big 12 championship there after that disappointing loss to South Alabama. It was, and then come in and lay egg in this one. It's like, dang, dude. Now Oklahoma finds themselves,
I know,
with a chance to get in.
So weird.
So weird indeed. And we're not going to really talk about the game, but I just wanted to point out Dylan Gabriel, 423 yards, 5 touchdowns, runs for another 50 on the ground and 3 more.
8 touchdowns, man.
8 touchdowns in a game is insane.
I don't care who you are.
But the game that I was watching while that was going on was Georgia and Ole Miss. And this was tight to start. This was 14-14 at one point early in the second quarter. And then Georgia finishes with a 52-17 stomping.
Yeah, I guess Ole Miss, though, for me was always a very on the edge top 10 team. And I think this kind of proved, I think, my point. They maybe not quite were they maybe a little bit high, at least in my mind. But
I did think that they would be able to compete like kind of like Missouri did. a little bit, but this ended up being exactly kind of like how that Georgia-Kentucky game went, where if Georgia wants to put their foot on the gas, plus they had Brock Bowers coming back in this game.
Makes a difference.
He had 3 catches, 34 yards, and a touchdown. But really, the superstar that I think nobody really saw coming in this game was Kendall Milton. 9 carries, 127 yards, and 2 touchdowns, averaging 14.1 per carry.
Yeah, it's like I tell people all the time, Georgia's one of those teams where kind of like I think, some of the teams in the past have been where you get them in a corner, you start doubting them, and they start taking over. Now we'll see what our rankings show. Obviously, for our rankings, they'll probably be the same. Again, this is recorded before the college football playoff rankings come out. My gut is that they might keep it the same, even though it's a big win over a top 10 team. Part of me just thinks they might keep it the same. I don't think they're going to penalize a team for winning by 35 points. But we'll see. I wouldn't hurt if Ohio State moves to 2 and Georgia moves to 1, but I also wouldn't be shocked if it stays the same in the top 3.
Yeah.
Either way.
The game that you were probably watching while that game was going on was Ohio State and Michigan State.
Yes.
And I know Marvin Harrison had a rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown. Maybe he had a second one
he had 2. Yeah.
May have missed out on, but
so yeah, it was. He had first series of the game, he had no catches. I think maybe he had 1 catch in the first series. They faked a toss to Henderson, reverse. Harrison goes in for a 19-yard touchdown. Then he has a ridiculous. Okay, I love how I say this every week, Josh, but you got to agree. Like every touchdown catch for him is crazy. He makes this crazy kind of turns around 180, barely gets a foot in, touchdown, and then obviously has a nasty double move on a slant that just folded the dude and for a touchdown. And I think someone said it after the game, and I thought this was very fascinating, that I think as much as Marvin Harrison says he doesn't listen to the outside noise, I think he was tired of people saying that he wasn't the best receiver in the country, and then decided, I'm the best receiver in the country. And also he had a 57, by the way, he had a 50, I think 8-yard reception. It was the first play of the second half for Ohio State. If the ball McCord throws is about another yard ahead of him, it's a touchdown. I mean, he has 3 touchdowns and 3 quarters. By the way, he only played 1 half, Josh. Outside of that first play of the second half, he only played 1 half, of football. And I think Joel Klatt said it best. If the Heisman truly meant for the best player in college football, like it should be, Marvin Harrison should be winning that trophy this year. So I'll leave it at that. I'll drop the mic on that. But no, overall, I think the Ohio State game was solid. I have no issues. I mean, they scored 35 points in the first half and then scored 3 in the second half. They got guys safe. The only thing I'm worried about, it was just announced today before we got on air, that Latham Ransom is done for the regular season. He will not play in the Michigan game, which is a bigger blow than I think people realize. He's kind of that soul in the back of that defense. Sonny Styles, who's been playing fantastic, he'll be coming out and playing. Hancock will be playing. There'll be a lot of other guys stepping up, but big blow. They're saying Eichenberg will be back as well as Proctor, so I'm not too concerned. But overall, the offensive line played great. Henderson only played a half, but he played great. McCord looked phenomenal. Dude, that throw, I don't know if you saw the throw to Stover. By the way, Stover was back. Did you see that touchdown pass to Stover? That was a ballsy throw, by the way. That the where he placed that between 2 defenders was really risky. And again, it just shows you how far he's come, I think, since the first week. And all you High State doubters, High State fans that are doubters, stop it. But anyways.
Couple other things worth noting. I put Texas kind of on that upset alert last week.
You did.
But turns out Quinn Ewers came back, but it still wasn't enough.
I love that. I was so funny. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, boy.
TCU still made it a game, and Texas escapes with a 29-26 win.
By the way, if they're still ranked above Alabama this week, I'm going to be salty because there's no way they should be. I know they beat them, but still.
North Carolina defeats Duke 47-45. That was a close one.
Drake May's heating up.
Oregon 36-27 over TCU. Bo Nix has himself a heck of a game.
Bo Nix,
412 yards passing in this one with 4 touchdowns. And then you have the last individual performance I'm going to talk about, Jaden Daniels.
Dude, this man, If he
What a
was
guy.
on a team with a good defense, I think we would have been talking about him.
Yes.
We'd be talking about him in different light. That defense, by the way, for LSU is so bad. It is so bad to watch. And again, people will say, Jaden Daniel, all these different things. He's a great quarterback and probably one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And I will talk about more in our Heisman list, but when people tell me about Neighbors, right? Nabbers or however you say it.
Malik Neighbors, baby.
This is my thing about him. People are saying, well, he's better if you look at his numbers than Harrison. Yeah, you're right in that sense, but also he's caught about 20 more passes than Harrison or 15 more passes than Harrison. I think you go either way with those two. I just think what they're doing down in LSU with that offense is phenomenal. The problem is that they don't have a defense to win big games. And I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like, it kind of feels like Caleb Williams. Like, how do I feel about him? It's like he's doing phenomenal things, but his defense sucks. The team's not that great. So what do you do? So I mean, if you take him away, they don't really have a rushing attack. So it's like it's a weird vibe with him.
Yeah. Jaden, end of the day, 372 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, dude. No picks. Rushing 12 carries, 234 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Stupid.
Had an 85-yard touchdown in this game.
He had 600 yards of total offense by himself.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. So
I mean, Jalen Wilrow had 3 rushing touchdowns. He has 7 rushing touchdowns in 2 games. He's another guy that's just lighting it up now.
Yeah. Jaden Daniels, as far as points responsible goes for this season, Caleb Williams still is first in that one with 244. Jaden's at 230.
Yeah, it's remarkable to see what he's doing, but again, we'll see how that reflects here in our power rankings and stuff. But is there, before we get to that, is there any games this week there, Josh, that you're like, we got to talk about? Not really. I mean, this is the weird week because it's the week before rivalry week, which usually is the suckiest week of football.
Rivalry week, yeah. And so the
week of football.
Yeah, a lot of the teams, especially the SEC, this is FCS week for them, as
must be nice.
Us in the North like to call it. But if you're looking for some competitive games, I did mention Washington has a tough game this weekend, and they are at Oregon State, number 12 team in the country. And Oregon State, as it stands right now, is actually a 2.5-point favorite.
Interesting. Fascinating.
Very interesting.
DJU is just lighting up and making Clemson look like, why did we get rid of him?
Yeah, so I don't know. What do you think about this one? You think Oregon State is one of those teams that can finally capitalize on maybe some of those deficiencies we see in Washington?
It's at Oregon State. It's at Oregon State, correct?
Oregon State is the home team.
So I guess for me, so this is my thing with Washington, though, because, yeah, their defense has struggled at times, but they seem to get stops when they need it. Like, look at the second half against Utah. I mean, they gave up 0 points. Right. So I have a real hard time believing that Washington's going to lose to Oregon State. I feel like Washington's offense is just a little too high powered to keep up with. I think for Oregon State to keep up with. I think Oregon State is a very good team, a very solid team. But I don't know if they have that firepower and the ability to kind of keep up with Washington. So I think I'm going to take Washington. I think it's going to be a shootout, though. I think it's going to be I'm going to say it's 45-31 Washington.
This is a tough one for me because I'm just looking.
Oh, and I'm going to drill, and I'm going to drill down. I'm going to say Penix throws for 5 touchdowns.
Heisman moment. Yeah, I'm looking through their last couple of games. Like Arizona did beat them, and it was 27-24, and they don't have that great of a defense. Colorado, they did beat, only 26-19 though. So I'm just like, okay, they've had a couple recent games against some bad defenses, and didn't necessarily have the show out that you would have wanted. And I would probably say Washington's defense is better than both of those.
Agreed.
And DJU also kind of played average in both of those games. I'm not sure that a 12 for 20 outing with 205 yards and maybe a touchdown is going to be enough. We're going to need to see a little bit more from the kid in this one. This is going to have to definitely be a DJU game. And I know it's going to be funny since I just mentioned like how I feel about Washington, and it's like getting closer and closer and closer. And maybe Oregon State can be that team. It wouldn't surprise me, but I'm still kind of like looking over here at the star power on Washington. I think it's going to be enough. This is on the road. They're given in Vegas the 2.5, which is not even quite home field advantage. So they definitely think Washington's the better team.
Yeah.
And would probably be a little more of a heavy favorite if it was on their turf. But I'm going to go ahead and still believe in Washington and go ahead and take them to win this game. And it probably will be both teams in the 30s, I'll say.
Yeah.
I'll give Washington like a 38 to 31.
Yeah. So we're about the same.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Let's see other games that could maybe be competitive. Georgia's at Tennessee.
That game's not going to be close. I can tell you that right now. I'm gonna call it right now. Georgia wins 56-21. It's just not going to be close. I don't see how that's going to be close.
I definitely don't feel as good about Tennessee after watching them against Missouri. And
Milton
I know the transitive property doesn't always work, but we saw Mizzou hang within 10, and then we just saw them put the thrashing on Tennessee, and we've now got Brock Bowers back healthy on the team. I think Georgia's starting to click on all cylinders. So, yeah, I think they definitely could hang 50 if they wanted to. It's just a matter of if they want to. But
it's kind of like Ohio State last week. If they wanted to, they could have put 70 on the board, but they put.
I'll give a 42-14 final here.
Oh, I like it.
More competitive games here. We got Utah at Arizona.
I'm gonna go Arizona in this game. I think I like the way Arizona, they're trending up. Just fun to see Arizona be good at a sport again. So I'm going to go Arizona. I'm going to go 28-17 Arizona.
I'm actually going to stick with Utah in this one.
You got to stick with Utah, man. You're
I'm
going
to stick with my team. I'm going to stick with my team in this one.
We don't talk about Florida enough, so you got to find another team.
Yeah. It's going to be close, though. It's going to be close. I'll give Utah like 28 in this one, and Arizona is going to get 24.
Oh, tight one.
Yeah, lower scoring for Arizona, I know, but Utah is going to have to be gritty in this one. As far as other competitive games go, I think that pretty much covers it. At least right now, Kansas and Kansas State. We'll see where they're ranked after the next poll comes out, but in-state rivalry game right there, worth maybe paying attention to. We've got let's see, we got Louisville at Miami. I'll only throw that one out there because ACC championship game on the line for Louisville, and Miami is the home team. Louisville's only a 1-point favorite in this one.
Fascinating. Yeah, I still think Louisville wins that game, probably by like 10.
Yeah, we've seen Miami come close, dude. Like, they've had a lot of close games here where they lose to North Carolina by 10. I know they kind of lost. They didn't have the greatest showing against NC State 20-6, but hang with Florida State, only lose that game by 7. Still a lot of talent on this roster. It's a lot of young talent as well, so they're going to make some mistakes that they shouldn't. But Louisville's going to have to be careful in this one. I'll just say that.
Yeah, for
especially after beating Virginia only by 7 last week.
Virginia's not good.
Yeah. So that pretty much covers the college football slate here.
Well, I will say, though, there is a couple other things, though. We have some coaching moves to chat about.
True. Before we get into like power rankings and stuff, yes, we have some coaching moves. So we mentioned Penn State, Michigan before, and I guess James Franklin has seen enough from Mike Yurcich and gave
former
him
Ohio State assistant, failing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's 2 in the last 2 weeks. Grinch and now Yurcich. We're just former Ohio State assistants just falling off the trees. No, I think it's the right move. I mean, what else what is he supposed to do? They can win all the games they're supposed to, but then they face these tough games, and it just seems like the offense just cannot run on any type of motor at all.
The other thing too is like we were under the impression that we got rid of Sean Clifford finally. We got a quarterback that's talented. The ceiling is like way up now offensively, but Sean Clifford was playing better games against Ohio State and Michigan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure.
He gave you a better chance to win.
Agreed. It's interesting to see, but that's the one. But then there's I think there's a bigger one, Josh.
The bigger one that I think most people will be shocked by was the Jimbo Fisher firing.
I thought it might happen this year. I think we've talked about it. I think we thought it might have happened. I don't think we thought it was going to be this early. And also the fact that they made this decision on Thursday, but didn't tell Jimbo until Sunday after he went out and whooped Mississippi State, which I think is the most Texas A&M thing of all time.
And did you see the video of the check?
Oh yeah,
the large check from the donors at halftime, the 116 million whatever, or 160,
and he got a little
crazy
trophy.
number.
He got a trophy that said National Championship 2000 whatever, and then now it's funny.
But they donated the money for the buyout, the 75 million or whatever it is that it's going to be. I think it's 25 million up front and then 7 million for the next several years until it's all done. But yeah, I guess I'm just surprised that it was mid-season. I figured this year could be very well his last shot with the team. Like, that's why he went out and made the move for Bobby Petrino to be the offensive coordinator. He's like, okay, I understand that my offense isn't working so well, so I'm going to give the keys to somebody else, and this is going to be a change that's going to make the team better. And
I don't know if he ever really gave over the keys, though. I feel like maybe he was
maybe he didn't.
Like Ryan Day, like half in, half out.
Yeah, maybe not. But that was like I guess the plan, or like at least what it looked like from the outside. And we were going to give this whole season a shot and see what happened. And they didn't even make it to the end before they decided to let him go. So now that the Texas A&M job is open, Ben,
who do you think?
I know a lot of people are going to throw out Urban Meyer.
Some
guys that I've been thinking about, or maybe some of those like hot up and coming names. I'm thinking of like Mike Elko from Duke, because he's a former DC over there at Texas A&M. I'm thinking of Jonathan Smith from Oregon State. They're going to be left out of the Pac-12 is going to be dead. They didn't get invited to the Big Ten. So where's Oregon State going to go? Perfect time to jump out and take over a big time program with plenty of resources for him. Maybe Lance Leipold, capitalize on what you've done at Kansas and make the move over there.
Another guy that I could see. Do I dare say Brian Hartline? I don't want it.
I thought about Brian, but he just got the OC job. Yeah. And I don't know if like necessarily being a head coach in college is what he's interested in the most. I think the NFL is the end game.
Oh yeah. And Stephen A. Smith says Deion Sanders. Oh, please no. We just can't. I can't deal with Deion going to Texas A&M after a year at Colorado, which is funny because when he was at Jackson State, he made it very clear he was never leaving Jackson State, or at least for a while. Then he, like 2 years later, he leaves. And he said the same thing about Colorado. I'm going to stay here. This is my place. I'm like, dude, you're just around for the clout. Like wherever you can go in and build a bigger brand, he's going to do it. So
Jackson State was never the end game. Colorado definitely isn't the end game, but I don't think 1 year and
I think it's Miami.
What he's going to do.
I honestly think it's not Miami. Sorry, Florida State. I think Florida State's where he's aiming. I think that's where he's aiming. He wants to go and finish where it started for him. But no, other names I thought of, like, do I dare just say Jim Harbaugh? If he gets let go of,
I thought of that too. I was like,
does he go down there and
when we saw a couple years ago, Lincoln Riley, Brian Kelly, and Mario Cristobal leave what we believed were destination jobs for other destination jobs, we were like, okay, money talks. So in my mind, Michigan is one of those destination jobs where you go and you stay until you're either fired or you retire, or you go to the NFL, right? Well, what if Jim can't go to the NFL? What if things at Michigan end up being like a worse punishment than what we anticipated? Does he make the move to Texas A&M then next? That did cross my mind. I'm not going to go ahead and throw it on like my top 5 candidates list, but again, it's like one of those where it's like, nobody's safe.
Yeah, and I think people say Urban Meyer. I just think Urban Meyer's done with coaching. Like, I legit just think Urban Meyer I don't know if he has the desire. He has a great job now where he gets to go and travel around the country, and he doesn't have to work as many hours. So I don't think Urban Meyer's really the guy that's going to take over. The only other name I was thinking of that kind of came to my head, and this is going to sound weird because we've just been talking about him, is James Franklin. Like it doesn't make sense, but I'm just saying, like, if we're going to throw out an oddball, that's my oddball. Someone kind of from out of the middle of nowhere that we didn't see coming, that would be the one.
Yeah. That'd be one of those where it's like, I don't get it. He had like a good thing going at Penn State, but it's like, but Texas A&M has much more resources and much more interest in football. I think much more backing. And that's no slight to Penn State. I think they definitely care about football, but
or does Bobby Petrino
get promoted? I don't think that's happening.
No, I know. I'm throwing things out.
But possible destinations for Jimbo, I think Michigan State is we got to wait to see what other head coaches get fired and which ones move around. But I think if I'm Michigan State, I'm definitely giving him a call. I think he fits into, I guess, what they're like. They're not gonna be like that tier one, but they definitely recruited very well under Jimbo. And I
Or
mean,
do
not the
we
greatest.
see a flop in Norville down in Florida State goes to Texas A&M, and we see Jimbo head back to Florida State? I'm just throwing it out there.
It's going to be an interesting offseason.
And also, fun fact, I just saw a graphic on Instagram that said this year, if things fall right, this year we could have the first playoff was Alabama, Florida State, Oregon, Ohio State. There is a chance the way games go, it could be Alabama, Ohio State, Oregon, Florida State to finish off the 4-year playoff, the first and the last.
I think you're going to have to get 2 losses with Georgia for that to happen.
Yeah, of course.
But
that would be cool.
If Oregon wins the Pac-12 and beats Washington rematch, they're definitely getting the nod in.
Yeah.
Ohio State beats Michigan, wins the Big Ten, they are getting the nod in. Florida State finishes undefeated and wins the ACC, they're definitely getting the nod in. And then you would have in that situation Alabama, I'm assuming, beating Georgia in the SEC championship game. Yep. That would be Georgia's first loss, unless Tennessee or Georgia Tech beat them, and that's their second loss. I think you need a 2-loss Georgia for that to happen. Yeah. But anyways, it's not completely ruled out yet. Yeah. It's definitely still a possibility.
So anyways, moving on from the coaches carousel, which we will be touching on as Josh, he's the coaching carousel king. I just named him that. I don't think he actually is, but we're just going to put titles on people now. We're going to talk about power rankings, and I'm interested to see if there's any shifting in Josh's or mine. But I'll go over last week. Last week I had Florida State at 5, 4 Washington, 3 Michigan, 2 Ohio State, and number 1 was Georgia. Josh had 5 was Oregon, 4 was Washington, 3 Michigan, 2 Ohio State, and 1 Georgia. Josh, let's start with you, and just give us your top 5. We'll go individually with the Heisman, but for this, let's go just all 5. Go ahead and run it down.
All right. Give me Oregon at 5. Holding them there.
Staying the same.
Good. I would put him over Washington, but I'm still giving respect to Washington for the head-to-head. Yeah. And I'll go ahead and keep Washington at 4 as well. Between the undefeated teams, I still think that they would defeat Florida State in a head-to-head. For number 3, Michigan proved it finally for me. I figured they had it in them. They've been winning like they were supposed to, and they confirmed it to me, so I can much more confidently submit them at that 3 spot. And this is where it really gets interesting, Ben, is 1-2, because like I was saying earlier, Georgia's looking really good. And they got 2 wins now that you can be like, okay, Missouri and Ole Miss compared to Ohio State's Penn State, Notre Dame. If Ohio State's at 1 for resume, I think Georgia might have just as good, if not better, of a resume at this point. But I still like Ohio State's defense a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and leave Georgia at 2, Ohio State at 1. But it wouldn't shock me if in another week or 2, Georgia's taking over at 1.
You're changing from last week?
I'm not changing. I still have Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Michigan 3, Washington 4, Oregon 5. That's the same, right?
No. You've had Georgia 1 for like 4 straight weeks.
Have I?
Yes. Are we seeing a Josh Burris change?
Did I?
Did you just
I might have spoke out of turn?
Did you just announce it wrong for like 3 straight weeks now, and you've just realized that you've spoken it wrong for 3 straight weeks now?
No,
because I can play back. I can play back audio.
No, I'm looking at the graphics. Yeah, that's.
Josh is sweating. He's close. He's
I
debating.
have had Georgia at 1.
Yes, for like 4 weeks now.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm saying. Ohio State's at 2 and Georgia's at 1. I'm going to keep it that way since that's how I've had it.
Oh, Josh. We love you, Josh. Anyways, for mine, I'm going to keep Florida State at 5. Oregon and Florida State are kind of like both of them there. But just for me, I think Florida State undefeated, kind of that old school saying, until you beat them, they're up there. So 4 Washington, 3 Michigan, 2 Ohio State, and 1 Georgia. So mine stays the same. Again, I just think Michigan, Ohio State, neck and neck. That winner of that game will kind of prove who's on top of that. And then Georgia just seems to be having a better team right now. I can see Josh is stressed scrolling to see.
I'm just like, what the heck am I saying?
Anyways, let's see if it's a better going through Heisman. So, and I'll start with the Heisman's this week. But actually, I'll let you start, Josh. I'll let you start. I went last week. But here we go. We'll go review. So mine last week was Ollie Gordon 5, Marvin Harrison Jr. 4, 3 was Jaden Daniels, 2 Bo Nix, 1 Michael Penix Jr. Yours was Ollie Gordon 5, and so it's the same as mine. So, Josh, go ahead and go first. Who's number 5 for you?
Number 5, making it back in the list is Dillon Gabriel.
Smart move.
After the performance he had, he put the team on his back and said, we are not losing a third straight game this season. Goes out and gets 8 total touchdowns. Third in the country now in points, responsible for keeping Oklahoma in the Big 12, in the Big 12 title hopes, still in the running. Re-enters in place of Ollie Gordon.
You know, Josh, I was having a really struggle. I was really struggling with this, Josh, because there's part of me that wanted to put Jalen Milroe in this spot because he is having a phenomenal last about 4 or 5 games. But then I was also thinking of Dillon Gabriel. And then I had to think about the Heisman Award. What does the Heisman Award represent? It's a full season award. Correct? Correct, Josh? Correct me if I'm wrong. It's a full season, prove what you got. Are you the best player in college football? I don't, and I know my head coach at the Cowbells will disagree with me because he thinks so much of Jalen Milroe right now. I have to put Dillon Gabriel because I feel that I can't credit someone for having 4 really good games the last 4 weeks, but struggling all the way up until then. And then all of a sudden, because he's had some freak performances against bad defenses, that all of a sudden now he gets it. Dillon Gabriel has proven it over and over, even in the losses, has proven that he can do some damage. And 8 touchdowns, it's really hard to keep him out of it. Again, and JJ McCarthy's not anywhere close to this list. So I'm going to say Dillon Gabriel as well.
All right. Number 4, Marvin's still staying there. The 3 touchdown game here. I know it's only against Michigan State, but
I think it saved him because I do think if he had a bad game, I think both of us would have dropped him if he would have had a second bad game.
If he would have had 4 games under 35 yards, it would have. It's like, yeah, that's not the consistency that I want to see. But yeah, still.
And again, as a receiver, it's not always on him. You know, so that's always what I always get to keep in mind with a receiver because you can only get the ball if it's thrown to you enough. And again, 4 for me is Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's the best player in football. No matter if he doesn't win the Heisman or not, I think he's the best player in football. He should win the Blitnikoff. He should win the Maxwell. Will he win any of those? Probably the Blitnikoff, but we'll see how popularity gets in the way of that. So Marvin Harrison Jr. 4.
Number 3, we got to shake up.
I knew this was coming. And I feel like it's coming for me too, but we'll
Number
see.
3, we got Bo Nix, who's been a very solid efficient number 2 for me for a long time. Very efficient still. I've always mentioned that the totals aren't there because he didn't always play all 4 quarters in all his games because he didn't need to. But I'm just seeing a lot, like I said, from Jaden Daniels, and I need to adjust my rankings accordingly. So it's not so much that Bo Nix has lost his second spot. It's that somebody has earned that second spot in my list, which I'll just go ahead and say Jaden's at number 2 for me. Jaden now has more passing yards, more points responsible for, and being asked to do a whole lot more, I think, on LSU's offense than what Bo Nix is in Oregon right now.
Yeah. Number 3 for me is as well Bo Nix. Bo Nix is a phenomenal player. Again, I think I agree with what you said, verbatim. Bo Nix did not lose number 2. He didn't. He's just freaking being outplayed by a guy who's having a heck of a season. Bo Nix number 3, and since you did number 2 for me is Michael Penix Jr. I am shocking the world, and I'll give you my reasons in a second. But you go ahead and give you your number 1.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and keep Michael there. Like we said, he comes out and has another win over a ranked team with Utah right there, maintaining passing yards leader in the NCAA right now. Still has Washington undefeated and in prime position to win that Pac-12 and make the playoff right there. So I'm keeping him there. I couldn't make the big jump from 3-1 for Jaden, so I'm maintaining Michael at 1, and we'll see what he does at Oregon State this weekend.
And I know I'm going to have people in the comments saying you're a hypocrite. You're just saying earlier in the show, wins matter, big wins matter, and you're right. But when you run for 230 whatever yards as a quarterback, throw for 370 for a total of 600 total yards, and that's not just one game. He's doing similar numbers in every game, at least for the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks. And with a defense is crap. And the difference I think between him and Caleb is that he does more with his legs than Caleb. And I think he looks smoother right now. His passes look a lot smoother. The throws look, he also has really good receivers, which helps. And for me, it's nothing against Michael Penix Jr. I think it's the same thing with Bo Nix. Michael Penix Jr. has thrown more picks, and that worries me at times. This past week, he's been fine. But again, I just think with what Jaden Daniels doing, this is the one time, probably the only time I'll ever put a guy that has 3 losses at number 1, because I just think that the numbers that he's putting up and the fact that he leads in touchdown passes, he's a freak when he runs the ball, I think is going to be very hard for voters not to vote for him, at least getting some votes. But for me right now, after that performance, he's number 1. Will it go down after the next week? Probably. But hey, I got to give the man his credit. Tip the cap to you, to my man.
I'm looking through what he did in the losses this season. So in that Florida State game, he had over 400 yards, total yards and a touchdown. Against Ole Miss, he has over 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then in the Alabama game, obviously he had to leave that early before he got hurt, but he was maintaining pace with Jalen Milroe and ended that game with 219 yards in the air with 2 touchdowns and 163 yards on the ground with a touchdown. So,
dude, he's a freak.
It doesn't look like he's causing any of these losses.
No, exactly. And that's why I have to put him up there. So there we go. What do you think? What do you think I'm crazy?
You are not. I just wasn't as brave as you, but
that's my middle name.
I'm not going to argue with anybody that wants to go ahead and throw Jaden at number 1 right now. And funny thing about that, the start of the season, he was the second highest odds-on favorite preseason for Heisman, and I thought that was hilarious.
We both did.
And here we are, not only maintaining him in our top 5 list this far into the season, but number 1 and number 2.
It's ridiculous, but
Vegas,
hey, that's what makes college football so freaking amazing. But moving on from college football, let's talk some NFL, specifically the most amazing game I have watched as a Browns fan in a very, very long time. I went from being depressed, sad, wanted to walk out my door and freeze in the cold, to being, what the heck happened? The Browns went from looking like this is my analogy, Josh. The Browns went from looking like a Pee-wee football team to a Division I in Ohio high school football team within a snap of a finger. Because after that first quarter, I was like, this is going to be another 38 to 12 win by the Ravens. And even after they were, we'd score field goals. I'm like, great, lovely field goals. But that performance by Deshaun Watson in the second half is what we've wanted to see from him for every freaking game. And he's just so injury prone, and it drives me insane. But the defense maybe didn't look great at all times, but when it needed them, Newsome stepped up. When they missed that extra point, when it could have tied it, I about cried because I'm like, here we go. Such a Browns thing to do. But then Dustin Hopkins doing what he does best and knocking over another game-winning field goal, by the way. My emotions were all over the board. It was a phenomenal game. It was probably up there with that Steelers playoff win, honestly, like just the amount of emotion into that game. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, I was down in the dumps about that first half too. I think we saw Deshaun Watson play his worst half of football in Cleveland and his best half of football in Cleveland in the same game. I'm still waiting to see like 4 consistent quarters from the guy on a repeated basis, because like we've been saying, it's like, yeah, he's been out of the football for 2 years. You got to give him time. It's like, I feel like we've had time, but then he can't even get back into the swing of things because of the injuries. And even at the end of the first half, he hobbles off, and PJ Walker has to throw that Hail Mary pass. And I'm like, gee whiz, man, get this guy off the field. I think he was 6 of 20 in that first half. And then
went
and then a
14
perfect
14.
14 of 14 in the second half. Ends the day with 213
and
yards, a touchdown and a pick there.
And some dimes.
And had some very nice throws too. We get Jerome Ford giving us 107 yards on the ground, which we haven't seen in a while. We hold Lamar to 223 yards through the air, a touchdown and 2 picks. We also held him to just 41 yards on the ground. This is stuff that usually doesn't happen. I thought the defense did a great job at containing him and keeping him in the pocket. And we got 3 sacks on him too in that game, which, again, like Lamar tends to kind of run wild on us, as he did in that first game. Basically did whatever he wanted through the air and through the ground. But yeah, 9 minutes left to go, and we're down 14, and we win this game by 2.
And the Browns are 6-3. Josh, if I would have told you the Browns would be missing their starting left and right tackle, their quarterback
against the defense that has the most sacks in the league. Yes.
But if I would tell you at the beginning of the year that at the week 10 point, that they would be missing both tackles, their quarterback would be injured for most of the year, their running back would be done for the year, their wide receivers would be inconsistent, their defense would be the number 1 in the NFL, what would you have told me? What would you think their record would have been? You probably would have said what?
More like 500. Like, we're 6-3 now, so maybe like a 4-5 or 5 or something like that.
But I'll tell you this. If anybody gets on Kevin Stefanski this year, I'm going to drive you up a wall, because this man has turned this team, which has been just a bumble jumble of chaos, into an actual, by the way, a legit playoff contender. I didn't think I was going to say that after Nick Chubb
you're Team Kevin again?
Hey, I've always been Team Kevin when it's going well.
When they win.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, that's how it always goes.
No, this is the thing.
We're off Team Kevin.
My big thing is I've always been like, give the guy the benefit of the doubt. My biggest issue was just some of the play calling in the losses, which was driving me nuts. It was like how we're losing games, not necessarily off the field decisions. I do think it's funny that Josh Dobbs is now tearing the ball up in Minnesota. I wish we would have kept him. I'm still mad we traded him. Drives me nuts. But no, the Browns are looking good, man. The defense is looking good. Myles Garrett is a freak, man. That man is just a human wrecking ball. But yes.
And now we get redemption, or a chance at redemption, I should say, again.
They should beat this team, man. They should beat this team
against Pittsburgh. We're 3.5-point favorites going into this. We're both 6-3, though, surprisingly.
By the way, the Steelers have not outscored any of their opponents, or out yardage. Sorry,
outgained. Yeah, they haven't outgained a single opponent this year.
Ridiculous.
And here they are, their wins this season. They're coming off of 23-19 win against Green Bay in their last game. They have defeated Tennessee 20-16. They have defeated the Rams 24-17. They've defeated the Ravens 17-10. They have defeated the Raiders 23-18. They defeated Cleveland 26-22 in week 2.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. TJ Watt scares me as normal, especially if we do not have tackles healthy.
If we don't have both tackles in this one, I know we just got to win against Baltimore, but can we do it back to back?
If DeJuan's back, that will help, because that gives you the right tackle. That means most likely they'll move Hudson to left tackle, but he scares the daylights out of me every time he's at tackle. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I think Deshaun has to play 4 good quarters. The defense has to step up. And again, I don't think this Pittsburgh Steelers is a threat offensively that much. So I think the defense will clamp down. But we'll see what the rest of the team does as we go from there. My prediction, I'm going to say prediction and a bold statement. My prediction is, I think, a high state. Wow. That's where my head is. Cleveland Browns win. I'm going to say 23-14. And I'm going to say, I'm going to throw a fun one out here. I'm going to say Jerome Ford runs for 150 yards. That's my bold prediction.
Jerome Ford 150. No bold takes from this guy, but I think Cleveland, and it's tough to say because it seems like we go through a pattern of big win, big letdown, win, letdown, even though we're 6-3. It seems like we have some letdown games because we should have won by more or something like that. But this Pittsburgh game, we're at home this time. We shouldn't have even lost that first one.
No,
crazy things seem to happen over at Heinz Field all the time. But this one, we're not losing this one. We're going to go ahead and even out this in-season series, get this win over Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett's going to get sacked 4 times in this one. And
There's
we're going to come out on top
prediction.
I don't even think it's that bold. We sacked Lamar 3 times, and it's
That's
a much
true.
less mobile quarterback. But excuse me. Yeah, and we'll win this one by 10.
I like it. My other bold prediction is that Dustin Hopkins hits 4 field goals. No, would that be correct? Hold on, 23. No.
That's 12 right there. So you got to get 11 points, touchdown, and 2 safeties.
So I'll say 3 field goals. Sorry. I'll say 3 field goals.
3
field goals. He'll hit 3 field goals, and 2 of them will be from 50 plus because for some reason he misses extra points, but he can hit 50 yarders like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Best trade they made, by the way. Best trade they made all offseason.
Big time. Yes.
But yeah. So that is, I think that, is that all NFL talk? I mean, we didn't really talk about other teams, but I mean, what is there to talk about? The fact that the Bills choked away, they fired their offensive coordinator, choked away another win last night on
They're 5-5
football. We could also talk about how the Patriots seemingly will never get rid of Bill Belichick. I don't think it's going to happen. They keep saying Mike Vrabel, but when is that going to happen? Bill Belichick has to agree to leave, I think.
We can talk about how the Raiders are 2-0 since firing Josh McDaniels.
And also
and are now 5-5.
And also the weirdest thing in the locker room, like, dude, this dude's weird. Josh McDaniels is a weird dude.
Yeah.
Just a weird dude. There's that. There's also Carson Wentz signing with was it the Rams?
The Rams.
Which is a weird one. But yeah, it's just NFL is weird at the time. Also, a record 10 rookie QBs have started this year, at least one game, which is, I didn't think this QB class was that deep. But before we go, we should talk about CJ Stroud.
Just going to say, why don't we talk about the number 1 rookie quarterback this season?
Yes. Answer me this question.
He's got Houston at 5-4 with a wide receiver core of Noah Brown, Tank Dell, and Nico Collins, which I don't know about you. That might be the 28th wide receiver room out of the 32 that I would choose in the NFL. And he somehow got this team at 5-4 and setting rookie records.
And also, Jared, he beat the Bengals on a last-second drive. So great. Here's my question, Josh. Yes or no? CJ Stroud deserves to be in the MVP conversation. Just no explanation, yes or no.
Okay, short answer, yes.
Okay. I'm not saying if he's going to win it. I'm just saying, should he be in the MVP? I think an MVP, most valuable player, for a guy to take a team that won, 2 or 3 games last year to a team that could possibly make the playoff. If they make the playoffs, how can you not consider him for MVP? And if he puts up the numbers that he's on pace for, almost 5,000 yards, probably like 30-ish touchdowns with maybe like 5 picks, dude, that's hard. That's hard to go against. And what he's doing is leading that team.
Well, I'll go ahead and read the numbers right here since I'm a big numbers guy. As far as passing yards go, he is second in the country. To another
rookie, by the way.
Not a rookie, Sam Howell.
No, he is considered a rookie because I don't think he played last year.
I think he got in 1 game last year.
I don't know because they keep saying he's a rookie. Because they keep saying he's a rookie.
From the
no, I know, but they keep
from the NBA.
But they keep saying that he's a rookie. That's what they keep saying on all the broadcasts. So I don't know if
that's weird. They're screwing that up. That's incorrect. Factually incorrect.
If you click on Sam Howell, I wonder how many games did he play last year? Did he play a game last year?
Yeah, he got in 1 game last year, 1 start.
Okay, so I don't know. Yeah, maybe there's a thing we don't know that if it's 1 start, then maybe that doesn't count. Yeah. But I don't know.
Because I know the MLB is like if you're under like 30 games, I think you're still considered rookie the next season. The NBA, if you don't play a game at all and you can be injured for 2 seasons, like what Joel Embiid was, and come back and be a rookie. But in the NFL, it's like even if you're hurt the whole season, you can't come back and be a rookie. But yeah, Sam Howell is leading. Sam Howell is first in yards regardless. So CJ Stroud is second though. As far as touchdowns go, CJ Stroud is tied for 9th with 15. QB rating or
I thought he had 17. Rating. I thought he had 17. Does he only have 15? I thought he had 17.
15.
This is fascinating.
Sam Howell has 17.
Huh. Anyways, continue.
But yeah, passer rating, we got CJ Stroud at 6th at 101. And then since you mentioned interceptions, he only has 2. And I'll go ahead and read some of these other numbers off compared to some of these other guys that he's going up against. So, I mean, the typical names like Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, all have more touchdowns than CJ, obviously, but obviously he's got more yards than them. that passer rating category. The only guys above him are Brock Purdy, Tua, Dak, Russell Wilson, and Kirk Cousins. And then as far as those interceptions go, I mean, we got Josh Allen leading the league right now with 11.
Crazy.
We've got Pat Mahomes with 8, Jalen Hurts with 8. We got Tua with 7. We've got Joe Burrow with 6, Dak with 6. So much better decision maker here than, or at least.
And I believe they said he was QB2. Is that right? A lot of people said he was QB2 in this class. Is that correct? I'm pretty sure we remember a lot of people saying that he was QB2.
And not only QB2, but he was big time dummy.
Yeah, he was dumb.
I'm sure process information.
I'm sure the guy that has thrown 2 picks all year is dumb and can't, and led 2, by the way, the only quarterback ever to leave, I think, back-to-back games of under 2 minutes game-winning drives. Like, okay, yeah, sure. And I love what he said. I think it was like, didn't he say like, I'm not a test guy, I'm a football player? I loved it. I was like, that is the way. And again, Pat McAfee even said it back in January. He's like, he's the best quarterback in the class. And I agree. So. Yeah, for sure. So anyways, that is this week's show. Josh, I hope you had a fun time. I had a fun time. It's talking about football. It's a great time of the year. Great time of the year. If you love the podcast, then over on YouTube, then go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Let us know that you're loving seeing the stuff. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, then make sure you share the link with friends and family so they can hear our lovely voices, because we could put you to sleep. Literally. That's what we do. We used to work in radio. We were the most beautiful faces on radio.
Good joke.
Yeah, it's terrible. Anyways, I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Go watch some football. Go spend time with family and friends. And until next time, we'll see ya.